These books all needed a wingman, which is where I come in. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am talking you through some of the books that I genuinely think are criminally underrated. These are books that I don't really see a whole lot of people talking about, reading, discussing. I don't think people even know that these books exist, but every single one of them had me in a chokehold. I need someone that I can talk about these books with. If it's the plot, if it's the characters, if it's the writing, it does not matter. I just need somebody that is going to grab a cup of coffee with me and settle on the couch, and then we can just deep dive. First one on the list, okay, I get it because it can be a little bit niche, and that is the Oh My God, What a Complete Aisling series by Sarah Breen and Emer McLysaght. I kind of get why these aren't so big on BookTube. The main reason being that they are very culturally specific. These books follow Aisling, who grew up in a really small rural town in the Midlands of Ireland, had moved to Dublin when she was in her 20s for work and for university, but things are starting to change. The relationship that Aisling thought was always going to end in marriage and babies and a big house in the country has fallen apart. So she has now moved back to her parents' house and is trying to get herself back on her feet again. And there is a whole lot that these books go through. It's not just about a girl who's a little bit of a fish out of water while she's living in the big city. There is also a discussion of parental death, of grief, of recovering from grief. There's a lot of talk about male mental health and the male mental health crisis that is happening at the moment. There are portrayals of pregnancy, of miscarriage, and kind of just as a whole, finding your place in the world. I've really enjoyed these books, mainly because Aisling and I have got quite a lot in common. We seem to find ourselves in quite similar situations every time I pick these books up. And I genuinely think that this is one every single Irish chick lit reader is going to love. Next is The Summer Job by Lizzie Dent, and this one is perfect for just like lounging around the pool. If you're out on a holiday for a couple of weeks and you're just looking for something that's going to keep you going while you're sipping on a cocktail. This is following Birdie, who has been hired as the sommelier for a huge hotel in Scotland. She wasn't expecting it to be as upmarket as it was because when she first took the job, she was kind of told that it was rather run down and it was just trying to pick itself back up. And there is a big problem with this because the only thing Birdie knows about wines is that one is red and one is white, and she thinks that rosé is like a mixture of the two. She's taken over this job from Heather, her best friend, who is actually a trained sommelier, but Heather's been following her heart this summer, and she's jetted off to Italy because there is a guy there that she's fallen in love with, and she really wants to give this relationship a shot. But while Birdie is surrounded by the picturesque Scottish Highlands, she starts to fall in love with James, the kitchen porter, and things start to deepen between the two of them, just as much as Birdie's lies are starting to deepen. I have seen surprisingly few people raving about The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and I think that part of that may be how the story is told. This book is told pretty much only in terms of correspondence. You are reading text chains, emails, minutes of meetings, and this is a little bit difficult for some people to read. But if you can get past the kind of quirky setup of this book, it has got a phenomenal storyline at its heart. It follows the Fairway Players who are putting together a production of All My Sons by Arthur Miller, and things have really started to deepen. You are also following Femi and Charlotte, who are two law students, and they have been tasked with discovering who was murdered, who the murderer was, who it is among the community that knew what was happening, why the murder took place in the first place, and who has been wrongly accused of this crime. I inhaled this book. I remember so vividly sitting on my reading chair for an entire evening. The page of my journal with this in it is just wall to wall sticky tapes and notes of, I think this is what's happening here. I am so convinced that this is what's happening that if it turns out to be something else, I'm actually going to be gobsmacked. I have read other Janice Hallett books and they haven't really held up to the premise of this one. They haven't gotten the same intrigue from me, but this one just blew me away. If you love a story that is about starting afresh, that kind of takes place across the entire world, and that will really give you a sense of if you can do it, so can I, then I would definitely recommend the I Heart series by Lindsay Kelk. There are 8 books in this series, all following Angela Clark. Angela discovers on the day of her best friend's wedding that her boyfriend has actually been seeing somebody else for the entire time. Angela heads home, packs all her troubles up, and heads for the first place that she finds on the departures board, New York City. While Angela is here, she starts a new career, she finds new friends, she really starts to find her place in the world, and she goes on a couple of dates to open up her adventure a little bit further and starts to fall in love with two very different guys. The one that she ends up with is genuinely one of my favorite book boyfriends of all time, and I love their relationship so much. This is one of my favorite series to read, and I dip back into it now and then if I just need a little bit of escapism, particularly because it does take place in so many amazing places across the world. Not just New York, but also Hawaii, Los Angeles, Vegas, Paris, London. And it's such a great little escape from when the days are starting to get a little bit dark and dreary. One of my favourite steamy romances is The Roommate by Rosie Danan, and this is definitely one that I have not seen anywhere on the internet. This is following Clara, who grew up in a very well-to-do, very posh, very upper-class family, and has been living in the same area of New England for her entire life. But she decides that she wants a little bit more adventure, so she heads off to Los Angeles to move in with one of her best friends, who she's also had a crush on for her whole life. However, it turns out that his band is going on tour for the entirety of the summer, so Clara is instead going to be living with Josh. Josh answered a Craigslist ad to kind of keep the room going, and Josh has got a very particular occupation that Clara was never expecting. Josh works in the adult entertainment industry, and he opens Clara's eyes and world to a whole new adventure. And when I tell you that this book got incredibly steamy, I am not joking. Some of my favourite steamy scenes of everything that I've ever read are found within the pages of this book. There is also a follow-up to this called The Intimacy Experiment, and I enjoyed that one, just not as much as I did The Roommate. Maybe I am not in the right historical fiction circles, but I definitely haven't heard anybody talking about Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce. Dear Mrs. Bird takes place in 1942 in London, right at the height of the Blitz, and it follows Emmy Lake. Emmy is hired as the personal assistant to Mrs. Bird, who is the advice columnist and agony aunt for Women's Friend. This is a magazine that is kind of keeping women going throughout the war while their husbands are away, giving them a kind of a sense of purpose and also trying to get them back into gear as housewives. It gives them recipes, it gives them sewing advice, and it gives them marital advice for when their husbands come home from war and how they're going to keep him happy. But Mrs. Bird will shy away from any topic that she sees as unsavory. So anything that has come in and Emily really wants to answer, Mrs. Bird will just immediately put it into the bin. However, Emily knows that a lot of these people really genuinely are crying out for help, so she's kind of taken it upon herself to answer these questions. I have loved every single book of the series that I've read so far. There is a new one coming out in July or August of 2025. It's going to be the end of the series, and I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to it yet with everything that I've been through with these characters, but I do have a feeling it's going to rip my heart into. A thriller that I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. Liz Nugent is one of Ireland's best thriller writers, and I would say this is her magnum opus. It's about Sally Diamond, who was told by her father that when he passes away, he doesn't want any big fanfare, just throw him out with the rubbish. So, on the morning that Sally's father passes away, she does exactly what he asked for and puts his body into the family's farm incinerator. All of this brings on a huge level of notoriety for Sally that she is very ill-equipped to deal with. It also goes through Sally's backstory, and you learn about Sally's birth, about her birth mother, how it is that she came to live with the Diamonds, and what has happened to her birth father. This book is genuinely harrowing in some of its details. I describe it as if Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman and Room by Emma Donoghue came together and had a book baby. That's the kind of vibe that you're going for with this book. I don't see people talking a lot about Rachel Lynn Solomon, and I genuinely loved her book Weather Girl. This is about Ari and Russell. Ari is working as a TV meteorologist, and Russell works in the station's sports department. But their bosses have been at loggerheads for ages. They used to be in a relationship and have now split, and the atmosphere in the office is starting to become so frosty that even Ari can't report on it any further. Ari and Russell decide that they are going to parent trap their bosses back together, but while they are spending time getting those two back together, their relationship is starting to heat up as well. I went into this book with very little expectations, but it completely blew me away. Not only because it's a lot spicier than I was expecting it to, but because it's got some really great representation in here. Russell is probably one of the first male plus size characters I've ever read, and I thought that that was written so perfectly. But there's also really great representation of male mental health in here. Russell suffers from anxiety, and I thought that this was dealt with perfectly. Finally, given how much everybody loves cozy fantasy, cozy mystery, I am surprised that I don't see a whole lot more about Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. I know he is much more famous for the Boyfriend Material series, but this one is truly perfect. If you are a fan of the Great British Bake Off, if you are a fan of any kind of baking or cooking show, this is definitely the one that you need to pick up. It is about Rosalind Palmer, who wants to give her and her daughter a better life, so she decides to sign up for Winner Cakes All. This is a televised baking show that comes with a huge cash prize. It's just that Rosalind has always been told that she's never going to amount to anything. While she is here, Rosalind meets with an absolutely wonderful cast of characters, apart from one person who I absolutely despised the whole way through this novel. I will say that this does come with a trigger warning for an on-scene sexual assault, but I thought it was handled really, really well, and it never really takes away from the seriousness of what happens. Overall, Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake is such a beautiful and cozy and warming and comforting hug in a book. And if you need something that's going to fill the bake-off shaped hole in your heart when the series is over, this is the one to go for. Those are some of the books that I think people really need to get on board the hype train for. Or if you've already read them, those are the books that you need to talk to me about. What book do you think people are really sleeping on at the moment? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me one of the heart emojis. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.